Everybody, after you get a chance to sign in, if you sit down, we'll get started. And there's more chairs in the back if we need them. We can pull those out. But I want to thank everybody for taking their time to come out on a Thursday evening. The town has engaged a consulting firm to help us with a speed study, look at speed, congestion, everything along Cary Street, all of it from the town limits to Main Street. So even though the diagram doesn't go all the way out to town limits, we will be looking at all of it. So want to appreciate everybody for coming, and feel free to provide your input so that we know where to guide our examination of the roadway. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bailey. He's the consultant working with us on this, and so he'll go over briefly what they're going to be doing and what the purpose of this evening is, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, my name is Mike Bailey. I'm an engineer with Grove Slate Associates. I'm a transportation engineer. The town, as Mike said, has engaged us to look at congestion and also look at speeding, things of that nature. There are a whole host of options that we can look at, different analyses we can do, So we thought the best step would be to first engage you guys. You know where the issues are. Just let us know what you're seeing, what the issues are, and then from there, we can pull a better scope together and perform that analysis. So like Mike said, we have two diagrams up here, or two aerials. They're red pins. We're going to mark on them to try to figure out exactly where stuff is and where the issues are. We will be looking from the town limits. I kind of cut it off just so it would be large enough that people could actually see and make sense of what's going on. But it will continue out to approximately here, something like that. So on the left here, we have sort of the overall, what I'll call the Cary Street corridor. And on the right, you're right over here, is sort of a blow up of the Cary Street, Main Street, Gray Street area. So at this time, if you guys would like to sort of come up and we can talk about it, or if you have specific questions or concerns, we can mark the maps. Just want to hear complaints basically from people where you're seeing issues. Well, this is how we're going to solve the problem, is working together. So, yes, sir.
After this, we are videotaping so that you can come back and watch it later, and other people can watch at home. So that's why we're using the microphone.
Is your mic working?
Is it? Doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't sound different to me. Here, would you like to use mine? I can just pass them back and forth.
Is it working? Yeah, it's working now. My question is, you've done a traffic study, but is your traffic study factoring in also what the impact of the project at Pierceville will be?
That's a great question. So to be clear, we have not done any analysis. This is fresh. This is step one. We're going to look at things. That's something we can factor in for sure, especially from a capacity standpoint. So that's why we wanted to engage everybody from the community surrounding the area first, so that we could better refine the scope. And it doesn't do us any good to take speeds way over here if we're talking about speeds down closer to Main Street as things drop. So that's why we want to identify exactly where the problem points are and what they are. Excuse me. And then we will do an analysis. But no analysis has been done to date from us.
All right, well, because that's not out yonder, that's right here.
Right.
That's part of what we've been complaining about.
That's this, correct?
Right.
Right. So I am aware that a study has been done or is either in the process of being done to support that development. That's not related to what I'm doing, but we would be able to use that information for other analysis.
Okay, I live over on Cary Street at 210 Cary, and it took me over 10 minutes to get here from there. I can't back out of my driveway. There's a car coming this way, then there's a car coming the other way. And then when I get down to the intersection at Grace, I have the same issue. There's cars flying up Gray Street that way, flying down Gray Street the other way. The volume of traffic is one problem, and the speed of the traffic going down there, especially on Gray Street, is another issue. I mean, there's just simply no wiggle room to add more trips.
And the third thing that is, it's not long enough that
That's true. The end of Cary Street, right at the intersection of Grace, is about a car and a half wide. Because the people that live on that end of,
Right.
that don't have off-street parking, so they have to, and Charles is here, he's had, I don't know how many mirrors broken off of his pickup truck for people trying to get two cars through there at one time.
Okay.
Years ago, they allowed those people to park up on the sidewalk. That worked pretty good, but then for some reason that was stopped, and that made a mess. So that was something that was.
Hey, y'all, we gotta talk
Okay.
into this because.
All right. Just to repeat the comment, following on the entrance there to Cary Street where it's two-way, to be so narrow, that looking back years and years, now we've been living in Goose Hill Creek for how many years?
16.
About 16 years. The traffic or the cars there were parking up on the sidewalk, so they would partially block the sidewalk. But that opened up the street where cars could get by. Right now, it's pretty narrow. Just this afternoon, I was behind a school bus trying to turn in. The school bus could not turn into Cary Street with cars coming out. It needed the full width of the intersection to turn in, so they had to sit on Grace and wait for everybody to get out of Cary Street before there was a break where the school bus could even make the turn at that corner. So right there's a choke point that needs to be addressed.
All right, so what I'm hearing, I'm just going to kind of mark these as we go. So I appreciate the input. And there's really nothing off limits per se. You know, we want to hear all the complaints to make sure that we're doing a good job of addressing everything that we can. So right here at Cary Street where it necks down a little bit, that's an issue there.
Yeah, that can't be widened because it's people's yards. I live right on the corner of Cary and Grace Street, so since we're talking about that, there have been numerous accidents at that intersection because of that. And I hear it, the people across the street on Cary hear it, so we're out there helping the people. There have been hit and runs. Not too long ago, there was a lady coming back from a meeting at the Smithfield Center. Somebody turned in front of her to go down Cary Street to Mill Swamp Road, tore the whole front end of her car off and left. Didn't even stop. There have been motorcycle accidents there, I mean, numerous in a year. So that is a big problem, that intersection right there.
And we can pull crash data and we can look at stuff
Yeah.
too. That is another option. So that would be the intersection of Cary
Grace and Cary Street, yep. And since I have the mic, I'm going to talk about the 100 block of Cary Street, which is from Main Street to Grace Street. That's a one-way street right now.
Right.
Well, it can only be a one-way street. Those people that live on that section of on Cary Street do not have off-street parking, so they have to park on the road. That's a very narrow road, and there are about 8 kids that live in this very small area too, and cars fly down there, and the only reason they do is to cross Grace Street, and they're going to Mill Swamp Road. That's the problem, is all these cars are coming through the downtown streets, and they really want to go to Mill Swamp Road. They don't care about being downtown. So I think we need to get those cars off of the downtown streets, and many of us have talked about a flyover, an exit ramp, something off of Route 10 that connects to Mill Swamp Road, and in my opinion, Cary Street should be a dead end at Goose Hill Creek. Goose Hill, whatever it's called. That way, people can still get to the Y from there. I don't have a problem with people going to the Y and Goose Hill, but then it takes all those cars, they're only going through the downtown streets to get to Mill Swamp. There's been a lot of development off of Mill Swamp Road in the last 10, 15 years, and we really need to have another way for those cars. And that's a county issue, and that's the problem that we run into, is that there's the town and the county have to work together because those are county roads, are VDOT roads.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
We live at 233 Cary, which is across from the tennis courts.
Okay.
I walk 5 miles a day in this town, twice a day. It's scary. So where I am, I go to the Y every day. And the only way, you got to walk opposing traffic, and I'm staring at those cars, and I'm not going to walk in the ditch with the water. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, is he going to move? Do I have to jump off the road? So I get up there, and they're so angry to want to get in here. I have a right to walk on, I don't have a sidewalk. There's no sidewalk. So from the end where my house is, on the other side, the sidewalk ends. There's a ditch that runs along the edge where the Y owns it. So you're going to walk on this. I'm not going to do that. So there's no sidewalk. And if you're going to have Pierceville, and there's the YMCA, there's the library, they're going to want to cross that street. So when you talk about Cary Street, I understand. I walk on the sidewalks. If someone parks on the sidewalk, how do I get by? Do you want me climbing on people's yards? And at the edge of Cary, they're step-ups. I got 2 little dogs. They should do something, but they can't take our walking sidewalks away from us either.
So are people parking on the
Yes.
sidewalks currently? Okay.
And, and I get it, because I wouldn't want their car, but you know what? When it's a large vehicle and I'm caught up against the cement edge of someone's yard, I'm like, what do I do?
And just to be clear, that's across from the tennis courts in this area here?
No, the problem is what they're talking about on Cary, where Bob lives.
Oh, they're talking about back,
So I have no sidewalks, but I walk into town, so as I'm coming into town, the sidewalk gets skinnier and skinnier, and I'm afraid to walk by. I mean, what am I supposed to do, go sideways? I got 2 little dogs I'm trying to walk. But the other thing is, I moved here because this is a walking town. And, if I go on to Cary, the little one, the one-way, you got to be careful too. It's like, I get it, people have to park, but people want to drive. And I'm like, well, where do you want me to walk? So, I've asked, why can't there be a sidewalk at the Y?
She's talking about the field that's right where the Y is. Yeah, right in the center, there's no sidewalk. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Ends at 232, and then there's no sidewalk going from 232 all the way.
Right. One comment on the sidewalk. When Goose Hill Creek was built, they required the sidewalk be put in along the side of the road. And Goose Hill Creek did that to the Y from the entrance to Goose Hill Creek. They were under the impression then that sidewalk would eventually be extended all the way back down Cary Street. Then the Y came in and said, oh, we're going to put a parking lot in here, and made it kind of so you can't really extend that sidewalk over the objection of us in Goose Hill Creek, because we wanted to have that sidewalk eventually make it all the way down on the north side of Cary Street. So that was a project that was in the works that got basically shelved to extend that sidewalk.
Okay. So basically, what I'll just say is sort of in front of the YMCA, pedestrian accommodations are the. Okay.
I'll come stand next to you. Nobody else will. I'll come stand next to you. So what they're talking about is, I live in Goose Hill.
Okay.
My wife and I, and the poor guy with the Ford truck, I've got extra mirrors. I'll take care of you. So that sidewalk goes here.
Okay.
And what they're talking about here is there's nothing here and nothing here, and this is the area that she's talking about. This sidewalk is atrocious. I'm getting wider, and this is the length of the sidewalk. So this whole thing needs to be redeveloped. Problem is, you can't take their property, and now you're back in the road. And as Mary Beth and some other folks have said, this whole road is a car length and a half. I like the idea. I wish they would dead end it. That's number one, with the traffic and everything else. The other thing that we've got a problem with, forget the cars. The town, 5 times a year, 4 times a year, how many iron triathlons? All right, that's a problem. Because they'll shut this whole thing down. They'll use the Ironman thing and the cycling and the triathlons, use this parking lot, and they set up here. And everything is up and down Cary Street, down Mill Swamp, out Mill Swamp, and down around wherever these bike lanes are. That shuts this street down, I don't know how many times, 4 or 5 times a year. That's the problem. The other thing I've got a question, who contracted you? Is this the city?
It's the town.
And it's for what? Okay, and this has got nothing to do with Pierceville. Thank you.
Did you have something else? Okay.
Yeah, the other thing too is, we talk about with the speed. I know coming in from Mill Swamp, I think it goes down to 45, and then it goes down to 30. But if you're going into town, I know the town speed limit is 25, and then when you get onto Cary, I guess my question is it 25 or is it 30? So I think I'd ask.
Coming into town is 30.
Okay.
And going out of town, it should be the same if there's no sign, then that's an oversight and something you have to.
There's no sign.
There's no sign going on.
Well,
That'd be part of this too, is signage, all of that's being considered.
so I'm from the area of Chesapeake originally, but I have driven the corridor from town limits in just to see. I understand, how narrow it is here at the on-street parking. I've seen the pedestrian accommodations. We're going to look at all this stuff, but in addition to that, we can do sign, inventory to make sure, one, that it's appropriately marked, and two, that it's actually marked at all. Yeah, I have pedestrian accommodations written on here.
The sidewalk that they're talking about on Cary Street, that was part of the Riverview Park project that they did, back in the 90s? And that's when they put the sidewalk, they extended the sidewalk from where the water tower is on Cary Street, across from 215. Cary Street's a water tower. They extended the sidewalk from there down to the last house and put a sidewalk in and took part of the people's yard on that side of the street and gave them $1 for it. And I guess you were part of the Riverview project, weren't you? And the traffic is just terrible. I've already talked to you about all that. But the people's speed, it's just unbelievable. And I think that the chief did a traffic study, and he has some of the statistics that the town came up with as far as what, they don't consider it speeding until it's 10 miles over the speed limit. So at 30, that's 40 miles an hour. So at 60, if you keep that same ratio, it should be 80, before you get, an actual ticket. But I don't understand the 10-mile thing, and especially on a residential street.
I haven't talked with the police. I don't know anything about that, but we can definitely do, capture speed data and see what's going on. So far, so far I'm hearing three main things. One would be speeding in and out of town. People accelerating too quickly leaving, people not slowing down soon enough coming in is what people are seeing. The second would be pedestrian accommodations along the section, especially where there is no sidewalk. And on this side, the sidewalk, it seems to be less than, what would be desired out there. So that's something else to look at. Excuse me. And then the third one would be just sort of congestion as far as how you're routing vehicles. The gentleman spoke to, the special event and shutting down the road, stuff like that.
Is that going to include a traffic count, daily traffic count?
Yeah, it can. So again, the point of this is to get a scope together. There's a lot of things we can do. There are items that we call traffic calming. There's a whole host of things that we can do without going too much into the weeds. So the general idea was to meet, figure out what's going on as far as the issues, identify those, get a scope together with the town as far as how we're going to proceed and what the analysis will actually look at. That can be counts for capacity analysis and rerouting vehicles, things of that nature. It can also be speed counts to see what the 85th percentile speed is and what's going on in different sections. The gentleman came up to me earlier and talked about there are 3 distinct sections of roadway. So, perhaps I just want to make sure that we are collecting data in the correct place so that we have good data to work off of. Then we can make recommendations based on that information, and then we can represent that and kind of move forward with that and see, if we're going to do something, how that's going to be funded, and that sort of thing. So that's why we're here. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for waiting.
That's all right. I've lived on Grace Street for over 30 years, almost 31 years. And so I have talked extensively and looked extensively at our traffic and our speeding on that street. I guess my question is the scope of this. Is this going to be a little wider than just Cary Street? Because Grace has a huge problem. We've talked about that extensively. Everybody who is here knows that. I mean, these are all the people we've talked with or seen town council people about. I have had people race by the front of my house at 40 or 50 miles an hour. Maybe it's, the traffic studies have been done by our police department, and the enforcement levels might not be what they would like, but I have to agree, when they tell us 9 or 10 miles over the speed limit in a residential area with children, pets, elderly, I'm one of those seniors, then I don't think that that's a reasonable enforcement level, first. Second, Grace has no mitigation. It is a straight-through street that people barrel down. There's nothing stopping them. There's no stop signs. There's nothing to slow them down. So that's a problem on Grace Street. And then we also have issues with, I guess, my biggest concern, and I've talked to the council about this, is with the population we have, which I've just mentioned, we have an increasing population of young children coming onto Grace Street and Cary Street, all of the downtown areas. And nothing has been looked at or thought about to how are we going to really address getting these massive volumes of traffic off of these streets and slowing these people down to where it's not a dangerous situation. I was just telling somebody, it wasn't a half of a month ago, I've had twice in the last year people who were racing down the street scream at me when I'm crossing with my dogs. I'm like, I can't understand that behavior, and I know we can't legislate behavior, but we sure can do stuff to force them to slow down to where this isn't an issue. We have children who play on the edge of our street every day. We have lots of traffic that is not just residential coming down Grace Street. We have lots of trucks, and it's supposed to be a no-truck zone for VDOT, which is amazing to me. These people are cutting through on residential streets, and we're supposed to have no traffic, heavy trucks cutting through and doing that. And it's every day. We have a lot of delivery trucks. That's, going to continue to grow as people buy online and have Amazon and FedEx and everybody else delivering to them, which is massive. We have blockage on the road when people do deliver, and then we have issues with people trying to race around those vehicles and not being safely passing them. We are starting to see more issues with getting in and out of our driveways as well. I know that Cary Street has been a horrible issue for them to get in and out during high traffic times. And we have people who will speed up to prevent you from getting out of your driveway so they don't have to wait on you. So we need some mitigation as well. I hope the scope of this study is beyond just Cary Street, that it includes the downtown area, including Grace Street. Main Street's going to have an issue as well, even though it's a business district. So we have a myriad of issues, and I can attest to being there for 30 years that I've seen an incredibly different type of situation occur over the years, and in the last 4 or 5, it's been massively increased in volume. So I don't know. I can just tell you my observations and tell you it concerns me. I am a retired teacher. I see the children every day. I see the buses come down. I have tried to speak to the council of saying I do not want to see a horrible accident where a child is run over, killed on a 25-mile-an-hour residential street that we should be protecting them. And I don't see that we are. So whatever we can do would be great, and include not just the Cary Street, Main Street connection, but we need to include some of these other neighborhood streets. So I hope that's part of it.
Yeah, and it may turn out to be that way. So the maps that we have up here were just sort of our first stab at it. The one thing I do want to make clear is I know that you guys have a lot of concerns, but that's the reason we're here. You have been heard, and the town is trying to address. That's the whole reason that they've engaged Grove Slade to do this, to take a look at everything. And that's why I appreciate everybody coming out, but that's why we're here, is to make sure everybody has a chance to voice their concerns. Now, from sort of a geographic area, We've spoken that it's going to go from the town limits in, but sort of focusing on this, we were, sort of imagining it being the box, if you will, with Grace, Cary, and Maine, looking at those. Does that cover the area you're talking about, or is it further on? Okay, about how far?
To Church Street on Grace.
To Church?
Oh, yeah.
You're also talking about James and Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, they all feed it.
They're speedways, man.
You said James, so this is James, right?
Yep. It's fairly wide. Washington's fairly wide. They'll both take parking on both sides. It's kind of tight if two vehicles are meeting, but, I've seen people just come up the hill at Mason Street and accelerate like a drag race down to James, stand on the brakes, take a left, do the same thing, and go down to that intersection we're talking about. But another thing, she was talking about the speeds and the 10 mile an hour limit over. I can be corrected on this, but if I'm not mistaken, I think if you're doing 20 over the speed limit, that can be reckless driving. And while I appreciate the police giving a fudge factor, say you're out on 55 mile an hour and you're doing 60, 62, and they don't ticket you, that's a big difference being maybe 10 over at 55, 65, or even out on the interstate than 25. It should be stepped up. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 80 miles an hour is reckless driving. So if you're on the interstate doing 70, doing 80, you might be
It's
reckless
20
driving.
over or 85 or over.
85 then, okay.
20 over posted or
Yeah.
a maximum of 85.
And this might be out of your purview, but lady mentioned about maybe dead ending Cary Street at a certain point and a flyover right there. I've talked to VDOT, and VDOT has told me that they won't build a flyover out there, but they won't prohibit it either. And with this Pierceville project, I have mentioned this numerous times to town council and planning commission both, and I've been ignored. Nobody's commented, nobody's even suggested it, nobody said, let's look into it. Maybe beyond your purview, but if we're looking at a traffic study, this Pierceville project has got to fit into it in some way, because that's one thing that we've all been complaining about for the past 2 years, is a concern about the not only density of population, which is not your thing, but the increased traffic, particularly up and down Grace and Cary. And that's pretty much fallen on deaf ears too, quite honestly. Council and Planning Commission haven't given a rip about it. They're just worried about getting the project done. So sorry to say that, but everybody here would agree with me.
So I am not in any way, shape, or form related or associated with this project.
I know
Just
you're
to make
not.
this abundantly clear,
I know you're
that
not.
is not me. I'm
you're
here
not.
solely for your concerns. That's
I
the
know,
only reason
I
I'm
know,
here.
but the traffic is going to figure in. It has to be part of it.
Sure, and that could be part of a capacity analysis. You're going to add the additional stuff. That may be something that's part of another study. I'm not sure. That's something we could look into. But as far as the speeding or whatever, there are ways to slow people down without huge projects like a fly. You're talking tens of millions of dollars for a fly, at least. So they're quite expensive. But there are ways that there are other options that we can look at that are more feasible, more affordable, that could get results. And that's why we're here. Yes, sir.
Yes, I know that Cary Street is the focus, the main focus here, but you just explained the block, including Grace Street and others. And I would think about mitigation, and particularly the speed. I had suggested at one time during these planning commission meetings that stop signs, always stops, be added to Cary Street and Grace Street, and then I think they should be added, always stops should be added at Thomas and North Church Street.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to write this down. Could you give me those intersections again?
Yes, Thomas and North Church Street. I think always stop should be there.
All right. Let's see. James. So Thomas would be which one?
Grace Street becomes Thomas Street.
Oh, okay. So this becomes Thomas up here. Yeah. Okay. So you're suggesting an always stop at this intersection?
Yes, at North Church and Thomas Street.
Thank you.
Every intersection should have this is a freeway. There should be stop signs here.
This lady over here wants it. Yeah. Okay.
So, without getting too into the detail, just to let you know, that's, again, something we can look at, and we want to hear everything tonight, make sure everyone's heard. There are design standards. There are things called warrants for all-way stops. We can look at that, but we can't implement something just to manage expectations that is not per federal standards for design. We can look into it, though, and see, and it may meet the warrants. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that.
Yes, and people keep mentioning the off-ramp from Mill Swamp Road to 10. I don't know how feasible that's going to be. But also a light at Berry Hill in 10, I think would mitigate some traffic traveling through that area as well, along Grace Street.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? Yeah, so that would be an example of traffic calming. There are speed tables, speed bumps, chicanes. There are a dozen things that we could choose. So what we're going to do is hear all the concerns, compile the study area and what we're going to look at, and then we'll collect data. And based on that data, I'll make recommendations that fit the problem set. So, we want to solve the problem. First step is identify the problem, and then we'll further refine that with data collection. And then we can make recommendations based on that, and then we'll present those back to you guys at that point. Yes, ma'am.
So just to offer another perspective from the 100 block of Cary Street, the one-way portion, I live at 111 Cary Street. We are actually the house that got hit by a car coming from Mill Swamp about a year and a half ago. And that was a medical emergency, so I don't know if there's much that could have been done, but I think it's an example of how things can go terribly wrong because the houses are very close to the roads and then the cars are all right there. We don't have a driveway. And I have 4 kids, and I just wanted to share something that happened a couple weeks ago. I have to literally stand in the middle of the road to strap my kids in their car seats, and I had a car fly past me to the point where I could feel the breeze. And it's just so dangerous. We tell our kids not to go in the road, but they're little. They're all 7 and under. And so cars can't really see the kids because there's all the cars parked on the sides. And so it's just an accident waiting to happen. And so the traffic calming, anything that could be done, speed bumps, if the road could even be closed at the end and we could all just go the other way out and it could essentially be a driveway for the 100 block of Cary Street, that's what it is. We're all just parked there, and so many cars fly by needlessly. Because on the map it looks like it's the most efficient way to get to Mill Swamp, but I think once cars go down it and realize they have to go super slow to not hit any other cars, they generally realize that it's not the most efficient way to go.
GPS will send you down that road. If you're
Yes,
in the program,
100%.
GPS, it sends you down the 100.
Yeah, if you're leaving town, GPS
Yeah.
is going to take you that way.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what I wanted.
I'll get you next, bud.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the corner of Main Street and Gray Street.
Okay.
Where, that little,
Main-
don't go down.
Down here.
Yeah, Cary Street, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay, so I go to work every morning and I come home every night, okay? And I take that turn in so that I can come up and around the auto place and then turn down and go towards Goose Hill. I'm going to tell you that's a very dangerous corner right there. Okay, I will tell you that because, one, in the morning, we have buses that stop because of the neighborhood across the street. We have trucks coming down Main Street. We have everybody in the world coming down Main Street. And it takes me sometimes 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 minutes to actually get out onto that Main Street from my area.
So you're talking about making a right turn out
Yes.
onto Main Street?
Yes,
Okay.
to get onto 10. And then at night, when I'm coming home from work, it's the same exact thing. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. That corner is really dangerous. The second thing, and oh, please, I don't want the auto place to leave, but I think that we need to put maybe a mirror there, so around that corner, that the people that are backing out of the auto place is literally not going to hit somebody coming up around that corner, because I almost got slammed tonight, and it was during the day.
Where is the auto place? This building? Okay. So you're,
Right
you're,
there
you're
at
talking
that
about
corner.
this bottom corner?
Yes.
All right.
Yep, and just a mirror would actually allow everyone that is coming down the street and coming around that corner and coming up the street will actually help people actually see, because people are crossing the road to get to their car after they've because they park over there. The auto cars are parked right there. So it's really dangerous. Those two spots, in my opinion, are pretty dangerous.
So when you talk about line of sight, I'm thinking sight distance. Is the sight distance an issue because of obstructions that are natural, like trees, or because of vehicles parked? So it's the actual horizontal curvature? Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're talking about, but we don't know that for sure.
That's what the plans are now, is they're gonna straighten that, but that's not gonna, you're just gonna move the corner somewhere else.
So basically they'll take Grace further south
Well, that's what we're worried
or
about, more people will wanna cut
west.
down the 100 block of Cary Street.
Because they won't have to hit a light or anything like that.
Okay.
100 block of Cary Street cannot handle.
Yeah, I drove, you're right about the GPS. Plus, I already want to go through that, and that is very narrow through there with the on-street parking. I'm the first to admit that. So, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming. I'm Joe Reich. I'm at 231 Cary, and I've been there about 16 years. The speed limit is 30 miles an hour from the whole stretch of it. There was a golf cart study done about 10, 12 years ago that designated that whole section of street at 30 miles an hour. So my suggestion would be to lower the speed limit on Cary Street to 20. People are going to do 10 miles an hour. It's like Mrs. Harris said, you can't legislate behavior. I think it's who said that. So, so people are going to do 10 miles an hour, basically, or over pretty much no matter what you do. So if you lower to 20, maybe they'll do 25 or less. And then one thing to consider, people don't realize, when you hit Mill Swamp Road, it fans out way out into the county, way out into South Sussex County, Surrey County. It goes way out. Spider webs out to 460 Wakefield. There's thousands of people that live back there that use Cary Street for that. So I can't take credit for this next suggestion. My neighbor Joe actually suggested it. He thought, when the Grange is built, which has been approved, it's going to happen. So that when the Grange is built, why not do a four-way stop sign across the street, or right there where the YMCA and Cary Street and the Grange entrance is scheduled to be installed. Do a four-way there. Because when people are out in the county, and I got friends in Wakefield, I drive it all the time. I drive back there all the time. I got a little S10 pickup truck, does about 55 miles an hour max. And I got people passing me doing 75 on the back roads, and you get speed desensitized. So you'll be rolling back down these back roads doing 60, 70 miles an hour. All of a sudden you hit Cary Street, you hit Mill Swamp, you hit the Mill Swamp Road Bridge, you hit Cary Street, goes from 45 down to 30. You don't even realize it sometimes if you're buzzing through there at 50 or 60 miles an hour. I think that's one of the biggest problems. So Joe suggested, Mr. Joe here, my neighbor, suggested four-way stop sign. When you hit that stop sign on Cary Street, you have to stop. You should anyway. And then big old 20-mile-an-hour sign right there in their face, and that would, at least in my mind, help alleviate some. With sidewalks for Susan. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, it was briefly mentioned a moment ago, but there's a lot of large construction vehicles, full-size tractor trailers going up and down Cary with regularity. A full tractor trailer, I mean,
So not delivery
gigantic,
vehicles,
18-wheelers, yes, with tractors on the back, cranes and diggers on the back. The dump trucks are coming out, one and, sometimes several at a time. They drop debris all over the street and never clean it up. That's happened like several times. There's a permanent pile of debris at the light when you come off the bypass into town that was spilled by those construction trucks. It's now permanently part of the road. You can see it right in the middle of the street. It's a big pile of rocks. It's like cement. They just left it sitting there. It probably needs to be scraped up with a machine at this point. But I think that that's part of the problem is I don't understand why there's industry trucks and huge dump trucks using Cary Street. It doesn't make any sense. That road was never designed to accommodate trucks of that weight. And so that's going to ruin the road for one thing, but that exacerbates the problem of volume and things of that nature in that area. The bottleneck for the school buses and things of that nature, that can't happen if you've got a giant dump truck that takes the whole width of the road. No, everyone has to back up. You have to do reverse. People are cutting the corner. There's tire tracks on the sidewalk where they cut that turn. There used to be a parking space right up against the street. They voluntarily gave that up to help with this problem, cut hedges down on the side of the house. That was another agreement with the town to make the visibility better at that spot. But if we're going to allow tractor trailers and huge dump trucks in construction to go up and down that street, nothing you do is going to stop the congestion.
Is that a newer, is that something that you've seen quasi recently? Okay, so this is something that you've observed for a while.
It's at that town stuff, and the town has big trucks and vehicles that go up and down Cary Street, and that, a residential street can't handle those big trucks.
Yes, ma'am.
One last thing about Cary Street, I know you've talked to death, but people talk about coming in and out of going to work, and it's truly unbelievable at between 6 and 9, 4 and 8. But anyway, I'm retired, so I'm at home in the daytime, and daily there are numerous children riding skateboards down the middle of the road, bicycles down the middle of the road, playing basketball down the middle of the road, and that's every day. And I think that's one piece that we haven't talked about with the safety issue. Mill Swamp Road, that's a very neighborhood street. You know, it's a, where you know, can see your neighbor 2 arms lengths across the street. And the whole Mill Swamp Road area should not be connected there. Never should have been and shouldn't be. Because that's thousands of people. I mean, thousands of people. So, you gotta think of these children that are coming from the ride to try to their house and that.
Yeah, and we can look at that as part of the pedestrian accommodations. That's something that I've been hearing. Yes, ma'am. I'll just stand up.
Very close is allowed in entrance from the Grange onto Cary. Because if that traffic is backed up on Cary, people in that big wide parking lot, the library parking lot, and go to Washington or Grange.
Okay. My apologies.
I think people are gonna cut the new development, go to that 4-way intersection in Wide, in order to go to Mill Swamp.
So,
I don't think you're gonna go through town.
so the concern is this development, when it comes online, would align with the parking lot driveway for the YMCA, for lack of a better word, and then maybe filter through as opposed to going around. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, hi, I live at 300 Cary Street, so obviously I'm not part of this, I'm down in right across the street from the public works yard.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear that it's being extended to county border. What I see is that you have 30 miles an hour is the speed limit on Cary Street until you get to the top of the hill. And then at the bottom of the hill, the speed limit, there's a sign that says in 45 mile an hour speed. And then people go to work. They are, once they pass just to pass Goose Hill, for me, obviously does not solve my problem because I've got to turn it down my driveway. I see the public works department, they've got trucks coming in and out every day. I would encourage you guys to consider feedback from the public works department as well, because there's got to be a few million near misses of people coming around that blind road on the hill, coming up the hill and running up on the trucks coming in and out. So perhaps you can work with the town to maybe enforce or request that they start recording those close encounters. Similarly, coming down the hill, people are gaining speed so they can hit whatever speed they think the town speed limit is. Because they are, anytime I turn in my driveway, I've got people looking around me. It's a blind turn at the bottom of the hill, as it is, traffic coming with the traffic, so it's hard to see. So it's setting itself up for a fair amount of issues. And one thing I would be interested in is that, you know, we can make the speed limit whatever it's going to be, but enforcement becomes a big issue. Traffic calming, all that, done traffic studies, been part of it, designed them, done all that. And I know that as you can't regulate behavior, but you can enforce things like speed limits. You can enforce things that do naturally mitigate it. I mean, one or two tickets could probably slow down a lot of people. And so I would hopefully, I mean, I think the town police do a tremendous job. I think they have a great, but I think that what everyone's saying here, this is not a new problem. And I think that perhaps if we request or any kind of extra or dedicated support enforcing these speed limits and things like that, would go just as long as the way they remain traffic calming.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that whatever we do, you know, is enforceable. You know, we need to help them so they're able to do their jobs as well.
Volunteer part of my yard to put a speed camera. That's a great idea. Great idea. I'll get the revenue from it.
Yes, ma'am.
Just two other items that, as you look at this, not only is the Grange going to add about 4,700 traffic trips a day to downtown. That's something that needs to be incorporated in the study. That's VDOT's number. I still say I think that's low, in my opinion. They are going to front, there's an entrance also on Grace to bring traffic straight down Grace. And the estimate is to at least double our traffic, which is over 2,000 a day right now on a residential street. But that's one development. I think it's worthy of you looking at the letter to the editor that was in the Smithfield Times this week,
Okay.
where it lists all of the developments coming online. I have a list as well. I've talked to the town council about all the developments coming on, the approved growth. There's many that are approved and many that are in building right now. It's thousands and thousands of people coming to Smithfield and Isle of Wight County. That's going to need to be incorporated in any study or what you're doing, because this is not just a static issue, it's a growing issue, and it's going to get nothing but worse. I actually drove our streets looking at signage as well. When you go up, I live, as I said, on Grace, so I walk my dog from Grace to James, turn right on James, coming from the top of your map down. There is not a single 25-mile-an-hour sign on the right side of that street. On the left side, there's one in front of the Ippolito's house, if anybody knows who they are. It's way up by the Y. When you're on Grace Street, there's a sign, several signs, but many of them are blocked by trees or branches. And there's one sign on the far side, on whatever direction that is on the map that you have, that's way down by Alan Ann Koch's house, which is Institute and Grace. But there's very little signage or anything, you know, indicating that people need to slow down. So that's an issue, but I don't know if that's something that, I know you said you're going to look at signage, so that's important to look at. But I think no matter what you do, you've got to look at the volume of traffic that's coming, and it's going to be massive into Smithfield.
So there are, and I keep hearing basically the same thing over and over. The three main things, and they're all different study types, and that's why we're here, and I appreciate you guys, your input. One is a capacity thing. Will the roads handle the vehicles? Is there excessive delay, queuing, what have you, the backup of cars? The second one would be pedestrian things. There are a lot of kids, a lot of people that walk their dogs, what have you. And so there, we can look at the sidewalk or what have you in that area, ways to safely move pedestrians from one location to another. And then also the speeding, both in and out, but bidirectional speeding there. So we'll take a look at those things. We'll put a scope together, and we'll analyze all that, and also the trucks as well. But that can be included as part of a capacity analysis.
Is this extended to South Church Street? Essentially, we only have two roads we have Riverton, and we have Bypass Street. To get, one is east-west. And then we have the roads that cut between, and we have normal people. But if this extends to South Church Street, because I live on the South Church Street speed limit, and my grandchildren are on the Cary Street speed limit. And, and it really is frightening. Going to their house, I'm going 25 to 30 in the park of Cary Street, that's the 200 park. And I have been passed by FedEx trucks, teenagers, whatever, but, when a FedEx truck is booking it, and I'm too slow because I'm going the speed limit, and then coming out of 300 Cary Street, which is across from the town facility, I've had a car come up on me so fast that he could not slow down enough to keep from passing me on the double line, going up the hill, and across the bridge there, across Route 10. And it's frightening. And trying to turn into there, as my son said, trying to turn into their house, I start to slow down and tap the brakes and turn on the signal. And they're still screeching their brakes, trying to not hit me, coming as I'm turning in and he's driving. But if it extends to Church Street also, then we're talking steel trucks on Church Street, and unfortunately too, because I love it, but the corner of Church Street and Jericho Road, and Jericho Road is still GPS to get to the park. And it's a nightmare. It's like Interstate 95, and my property ends up being turn around, hit the wall as many times as you can, whatever. We're damaging, even trucks, buses coming for track meets at the park have run up on my granite, it's 18 inches above Jericho Road, slammed down and chipped the granite, and then kept on going. And it's just, the traffic in this town needs to be managed. We've been here in that house 30 years, and it's steadily, almost impossible. I was told by a police officer when we were trying to have a delivery come across the street because they couldn't make it down Jericho Road. So I called and got a police officer, said, "Oh, don't stand out there, they'll kill you." I talked to the town manager about having our wall fixed, and he said, "Well, don't bother to fix it because they're just going to hit it again." I'm not sure those are the answers that a property owner should have to get. So if it includes Church Street, my reason for being here is the concern for my grandchildren, and somebody losing control will jump in the ditch and kill my grandchildren and they're up by the house.
Sure. So as of right now, it is just, what I'm going to say, it's Cary Street and the surrounding roadway network. We've identified other intersections, but
Grace Street to get that way, they're coming down Church Street to get to the clear. When they're coming home from working at the shipyard, packing plant, wherever they're going, they're coming up Church Street and, running past the stop school buses on Church Street to get to Grace Street so they can go break the laws on Grace Street too. So it's a town problem.
all right, thank you.
I just want to touch on the signage again for just a little bit.
Sure.
I know I've been driving for longer than I want to admit, since the late 90s. I remember when I was especially a teenager, I would hot ride around a little bit more than Lonzo probably wants to hear about. But anytime I'd see one of those signs that said speeding fines increased by $200, as a really broke teenager, I better believe I adhered to those. So I was just thinking, maybe adding those to the stop signs as well, and then having whatever speed limit is decided for Cary Street, which I hope is 25 or less, so I can get a golf cart, Michael. As soon as you turn onto Cary Street, have a sign right there in either I'm sorry, Chuck, either yours or the one on the corner right there. Sign right there. As soon as you turn in, you see it and you know, because a lot of people really don't. And I think when they get used to doing 45 or more out in the county, when they're heading out there, they just turn in and they just get on it. Now, you can't blame them for wanting to get on home, but you don't want them. I don't doubt it one bit. Here you are, ma'am.
Talking about signs too, on the 100 Cary block, I mean, I've bought my own signs and said, slow down, children, whatever. We have a little plastic turtle thing with a flag that sits on the sidewalk that, falls over when it's windy. But why do I have to buy my own signs? And I think the 100 block of Cary Street, since it's so narrow, you should have a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. There's no reason. I live on that street. I don't think I even go more than 10 miles an hour because somebody opens up a door. I'm surprised. I mean, several cars have been clipped, sideswiped on that street because it's narrow and they fly down there. But the signage that's exactly it.
All right, thank you.
Mike, just one comment. This is just an info item. From people I've talked to over the years and friends I have at the Highway Department, Cary Street intersection with Grace Street. Grace is a state designated route. So it's run by not the town, but the state. And a few years back, the state came and said, we want to resurface and flatten that street because it's got a curl to it. And the town said, well, how about waiting? Because we're getting ready to tear it up and put water line, sewer, something in the street. So the town has done their part with the idea then the state would come in. But in the meantime, the vehicle for the State Highway Department to get funding for their projects changed. So now from what I understand, they haven't been able to fund all the repairs on that street. So it's the roughest road we have anywhere around. And I think it's just stuck in limbo as to when the state will ever be able to come in and do it. And because now you got another player involved, that could complicate anything you do around that Cary and Grace intersection.
Okay.
Excellent.
I'm holding you to it.
Well, they can't hear you if you don't. So just another question, is there any, obviously we were talking about to the town line. Is there any consideration or is there any coordination with VDOT or the county to extend a lower speed limit, to taper the speed limit up and down before you get to the town? I mean, is that an option here? Is that something that, because I think what a lot of folks have hinted at is that you get used to going pretty fast out in the country roads. For better, for worse, people do it. I mean, growing up around here, I did as well, so I'd admit to that. But if you start to taper it back, it does make it a little bit more conscious. If you start to see the signs, you see tapering back, and whether, I mean, selfishly, I do not want it to be on the stretch of the hill that goes up the hill because that's where I live. That's where my kids play. That's where we almost get hit regularly pulling out of our driveway. But does this consider anything immediately within the, I don't know, half-mile buffer of the town limits?
We haven't defined the scope, so no, because the scope is nebulous. We haven't defined anything. The issue that we may run into with that is you would technically be using town funds to pay for a study that's outside of town limits, and then VDOT is not necessarily beholden to any defined.
Understood. Yeah, and not necessarily doing the study there, but if you could, I don't know, coordinate with them.
We could definitely approach VDOT and request that they.
I mean, because the thought being is that if you taper it back or taper it down, there's a better chance that people will abide by it, because when you see speed limits change quite a bit, you do it. And I mean, any of us that have driven 460 going through Waverly, there's that hill where the police there. If you're not slowing down by that point, you're gonna pay town of Waverly a little bit of money. So I mean, but that awareness of the signs, I think, would be helpful, whether that happens in the town limits or on the undefined speed limit in the county, then that may be helpful as well, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. Honestly, thank you all very much. It's extremely insightful. Couldn't do it, at least not nearly as well without you guys, so thank you so much. If you have not signed in on the sign-in sheet, please do so on your way out so we can make sure that everybody who participated is kept in the loop as things progress. And again, thank you and have a great evening.